All of us remember what happened during the pandemic. That's right, in 2020, our world stopped. Overnight, we were told that we had to stay inside, we had to limit our exposure to other people, we had to wear masks, and the way we interacted with people would change overnight. And we were told that we were on a lockdown, period, full stop. Nobody had prepared us for this. We didn't know about this was coming. Nobody forewarned us that a lockdown was possible, and we had no clue what a lockdown looked like. Imagine all of the things that shook your world. I mean, how you went grocery shopping, how you ordered things for your home. Your kids graduated in the front yard. Some of the kids who went to college, their first year of college was literally in their bedroom. So all of a sudden, you've got this situation where we as a society were shocked because the way we had been doing things for the longest, we were told we had to stop doing it overnight. And this went on for 2 years. But now fast forward, 2 years later, 2022, we're coming out of it. By the time we get there, we are aggravated because guess what? The way we've been doing things was disrupted in a way that we can never get back. Those kids will never be able to graduate high school again. They'll never be able to get that first year back in college. We still recognize and appreciate some of the niceties in terms of using apps to get different things. But guess what? The way we had our life was shook forever. We now will realize that there is a possibility that we could be in a world where at a moment's notice, locking you down was a possibility. And trust me, there's a lot of you out there that feels a particular way. I mean, really feels like, yeah, I ain't trying to go through that again. A lot of you, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, were traumatized. This was not what you signed up for. But how could you sign up for? Because this was something that you didn't experience. So even though this was a 2-year time period, it was 2 years of your life you can't get back because it disrupted all of the years leading up to that point. Nobody prepared you for this, and there was no way you could prepare your kids for this or future generations. No way whatsoever. So now we're years removed from when the pandemic actually occurred, and we're telling ourselves we'd never go through that again, and we were traumatized as a result of it. See how you feel about that? Take a step back and ask yourself this question. Imagine being in a world that for at least 90 years literally separated everyone, meaning black people over here, white people over here. Black people were told they had to sit in the back. White people were told that they could go through certain interests. Black people experienced these particular types of discriminatory concepts. White people were told that this was okay. And then out of nowhere, it ended overnight. You just had 2 years of the pandemic shaking your world. Imagine after 90 years having the world shook. What do you do with that information going forward? More importantly, just like it was for those parents during the pandemic trying to figure out how do I prepare my kids for what a post-pandemic world looks like when I didn't even know this was a thing? What happens to those parents who find themselves in a position of now looking at their kids and saying, this has been the world order for almost a century. This is what's going to be happening now. Not quite sure how to prepare you for it, but this is what the deal is. That's the story of Generation X, and even more so, the story of Black Generation X. A new world order without a map. Think about what I just described before with regards to the pandemic. When the pandemic came, we didn't see it coming. We literally found ourselves in a situation where overnight, the virus came, it was catching us off guard, and they had to move accordingly. And so all of a sudden, they had to flip a switch. The roads were clear. Mass transit was ended. People were staying at home, and we were doing things we had never done before. So imagine a situation where almost 90 years, there was restrictive covenant. There were discriminatory laws. There were redlining. And then there was Jim Crow. There were all these things that were put in place where people were basically told, if you go here, these are consequences. If you do this, this is the consequences. It was a world that literally people thought this was just the way it is. And then literally overnight, you were told, nope, not going to do that anymore. All of you got to go get together and work it out. If you're a parent in that situation, what is your reference point when you send your children to school under this new environment? Now, there was a lot of parents who found themselves pulling their kids out of those environments and keeping them in environments that they were familiar with. But this wasn't the case across the board. Busing became an issue. Desegregation became an issue. Schools were being shut down. So all of a sudden, you have parents who have 90 years of reference of how things used to be, now face the reality that their kids are now in this new space and they had no idea how to prepare them for it. And this is one of the reasons I talked about this in my book, The Black Generation X in the Middle, because I wanted people to get an understanding of how that shaped us. And why is this important? You've got to remember, this is one of the things that doesn't get talked about. For Black kids who grew up during Jim Crow, schools and the communities were designed to not only nurture kids that look like me, but also to protect them. because they had to be familiar with how to maneuver in spaces where hostility can turn on a dime. They had to know where the places they could go, where it was safe, and where the places they could go that was not safe. They had to learn how to engage people in such a way so that they wouldn't be harmed, and what they needed to do and how they needed to get out of those areas if it looked like it was going to escalate quickly. This was the world order from about 1865 to about 1964. This was pretty much the way the world worked. All of a sudden, that was gone. So what do you do at that point? I have to remind people that even my mom, who was a kindergarten teacher back in like 1974 is when she started, her first class of students was the first integrated class. All of her peers, her white colleagues and her black colleagues who were teaching kindergartens, they were the first generation of teachers to literally have the first integrated kindergarten class. Nobody taught them anything. Nobody said to them, okay, now that you've got a mixture of these kids, this is what you need to do. The only thing that school districts could do is rely upon these people, these teachers' educational training that they could teach them accordingly. But for us who grew up in these things, this was our norm. See, unlike the pandemic, where it literally happened at a time period where it wasn't long enough for a particular generation to actually experience this and so forth like this, for me, I grew up as a member of Black Generation X, where my norm was a desegregated society. I didn't know what it was like to walk into the back door or the side doors or sit in the back. I didn't know what it was like to go into an establishment and not get served immediately. Right out the gate, my world order was this world order where I developed relationships with kids who looked like me and those kids who didn't look like me. This was the norm for me. These kids came to my house. I went to their house. There didn't seem to be any particular problem. But the reality is that there were plenty of examples. Trust me, there were a lot of Confederate flags because I grew up in the South. I did have family members who reminded me or let me know about certain things, like certain parks in my hometown were black and white. Certain areas were black and white. I found out where the dividing line was to where the black communities were and where the white communities were. There were those remnants from the trauma of that time period that was readily made available to me. But at the same time, for me, they were just historical references. Because for my parents and my grandparents, they were representatives of the trauma they experienced. For me, it was just a historical indication of what life was before, not reflective of where we were then, which made our experience so powerful. We, Generation X, especially Black Generation X, were the first generation to come up in a world where our parents couldn't prepare us. Whether it was the silent generation or the greatest generation or the baby boomers, all of those had the prior generation to prepare them because the way the world was the same throughout. Coming into the Generation X, our world was different. And our parents did not necessarily know what tools they had to provide to us to prepare us for this new world order. And this is just an introduction. If you want the full journey, please check out my book below. It's great. I do have a couple of specials so that if you're looking at just getting a free copy, if you leave me a comment indicating that you'd like for me to put a code in here in the comment section, I'll be more than happy to. I only have a limited number of free codes. So if you want one, check it out and read it up. It's not a long read, but I would really love your feedback. Take care, everyone.